Okay, we're going to do some winter maintenance. Carburetor's under here. I'm going to take it off, clean it out. It's been sitting all summer. And I want to make sure it's clean and clear and in proper functioning order. As well as we'll change the oil out on this because I need to have the snowblower going for winter. And as you can see, you already got some snow. So while I can, let's get this going. Got one up here we gotta take. There we go. That's the one I was looking for. So it's a 5/16. Working it back and forth. That's can feel the threads galling up a little bit on there. I don't want to strip them. It's coming out nice and clean. Another thing you do, give it a squirt of oil, or in this case, it's a combustion chamber cleaner. It's actually fairly oily, so it'll actually add a little bit of lubrication and actually penetrate quite well. Alrighty. I disconnected the little handles off of here so I can slide off. Just flip that out of the way. And there we go. So I got to disconnect. Little vacuum line there. That should go to the primer, I believe. And then we got the fuel line here we got to take off. This needle nose is not a pair of pliers you should be using something like this. That's what I have in my pocket. So I'm hoping I can get on there. Move it enough. There we go. Now I did clean this carburetor out once a couple years ago. And it would still run if I didn't, but last time I ran this, the end part of winter, it was running just a little rough, so gonna get it all cleared out. Now on this, see if I can get a socket on there. I might have to get a wrench to get on those, but we'll see what we can do. Okay, so get those loosened off. Okay, and this one on this side actually has a bolt going through, so you got to hold the back side of the bolt while taking that nut off. And it just comes off. Be careful. don't lose anything, any of these little rods, and make a mental note or take a picture with your camera and where they go back. My camera's picking that up. You got 3 holes. You can see the wear in that one hole, so it's kind of obvious where it goes back. But if yours is a newer machine, doesn't have that much wear on it, you might not see that, so just pay attention to everything. Go slow, take your time. Okay, let's crack this nut free. Okay, pull that assembly out and carefully take your bowl off. Try not to damage your O-ring you got on the carburetor here. That's what seals the bowl up. Just don't damage it. Just take your time. You can see some dirt in there. We're going to clean that up. Now we're going to clean this up. We're going to spray some combustion chamber cleaner into all these little orifices, and we want to clean them out. You can use a little guitar string, piece of wire, something that'll fit in there. You just want to clean out everything. Have some compressed air and blow everything out. Now see, I don't know if you caught that. You got to be careful. That'll flip up, and then your needle will fall out. So let's find my needle now. And there it is. Here's your needle to needle and seat. Don't want to lose that. You don't want to damage this taper on it, because that's what seals. Sometimes what you can do is with some really fine sandpaper, 600 grit, 800 grit, you can hold the sandpaper and roll this in your fingers and kind of resand, reshape, because what they'll get is a groove in them from where they are constantly seating into the seat, and then they'll start leaking on you. So sometimes you can prolong its life, renew it. I'm sorry for that wind if it's quite loud, but it's a windy day here today. But you can kind of save your needles sometimes with some sandpaper. Have them go a little bit longer before you have to replace them. I generally don't recommend doing that, but sometimes you need to do it. Sometimes parts aren't available, or you need the machine up and going and you just can't wait for the parts to get in. So we're going to set this aside. Try not to damage it or lose it. Let's get back to taking this apart. Alright. So go ahead and I'm going to pull this O-ring off very carefully. They get kind of stuck on there from the heat and the varnish. The fuel, so you got to be careful not to tear or wreck anything. So that came off all right. It's your pin for your float. Do not lose it. You will absolutely need that. And there's your float. This is a brass float. Your carburetor might have a plastic float, and some even have kind of a composite float. They'll be generally black, and they have a tendency to swell up with fuel as they wear out. The plastic ones, they're generally kind of white or transparent in color and are hollow plastic. You'll see if they get full of fuel when they wear out, because they'll get a little hole in them, and then you can slosh it around and you'll see the fuel. Same with the brass. Sometimes you develop a small leak, pinhole, and you can hear it sloshing around. All you have to do is make sure to drain it and then you can resolder your brass ones and keep them going. So a brass float is the best way to go. Of course, you don't always have that option on the older machines, not so much on the newer ones. So let's spray this down and clean it out. Let's see what we got going. It's good to have a brake clean or something to spray it out and rinse it out with after. About 1 1/4 turns in, so we want to reset that and we put it back in. That looks all right. Set that aside. Want to spray some into the bowl and get that cleaned out. Let that soak. So I doubt the camera is going to pick that up, but you have a couple of small holes. This one being the smallest, it's really tiny. You just want to make sure that it's free, clear, and open. You don't want anything plugging it. As this screws in, that will be your main jet with little orifices, so you need to have that free and clear so fuel can pass through. Or you're going to be starving this thing on fuel. Same, you want that wide open and clear. I'm going to go get some compressed air and I'm going to blow this out now. Sprayed it down with some brake clean, blew it out. I think it's good now. I'll just rinse everything down now with some brake clean. Get it all cleaned out. Trying to make sure that this little hole is free and clear. Something like that is very easy to overlook and miss, and it'll make a big difference on how it runs. I'll try to do that again. So I'm blocking the holes, and hopefully you'll see fluid come out of that top one. I don't know if the camera's picking that up, but it's a nice steady stream coming out of there. So that is nice and free and clear, open and ready to go. Now there's a slight ridge. See it? You can just feel it with your nail. So this should seal. I shouldn't have any issues with it. It has been sealing, but you'll notice when it doesn't, it'll start overfilling, flooding over. That's a good indication that you have a needle seat you got to replace, and or a float. So we have this little tab. That little piece hooks in. Try to get back to where the camera is actually able to focus. That is. When you tighten this up, just snug it. It's so easy to strip. Just take your time, go slow, and just snug it. Don't do anything more. It doesn't need to be that tight. You'll cause more issues if you try getting it too tight than not. You'll strip it, or it'll be leaking on you, or whatever. Just snug. That's all it needs to be. Put it back on. Just reverse order. Make sure these are snug. Don't want to over tighten those either. Right? Got that screwed in. This is set to 1 1/4 as I pulled it out. If you forgot to check yours, or you're not sure, generally 1 1/2 is the rule. So you screw it all the way in and then back it out 1 1/2 turns. And that's your starting point. So I'm going to turn the fuel on now, see if we got any leaks. Okay, fuel is on. I did fill up the fuel tank, so we got plenty of gas in there. I'm just feeling underneath to see if we got any leaks from underneath it. Because like I said, that washer, if it doesn't seal, you can get leaks. It's dirty. Got no leaks. Hands are nice and dry. Don't see anything filling up or puking out of the throat of the carb there, so I think we're all good. I'm going to go ahead and throw this cover back on, and we'll go fire it up. And after we ran it for a while, we'll change the oil. There's where you drain it. There's where you fill it. Okay. Always make sure to replace the key. Without that, it's grounded, it won't start. There. There's your choke. There's your throttle. Let's get this started. Okay, let's check the oil. See, it's a little low. It's on OK, barely. That's quite dirty, so it definitely needs to be changed. Prime it. Okay. And everything's right. This should just fire off with one pull. Adjusting the main jet, just putting it in my hand. And that is usually how easy it starts. I've never usually had an issue trying to start this thing, so. One pull, sometimes two. As you see what I'm doing, I am shutting the fuel off right now. I recommend doing that if you have a manual shut off like I do for your fuel, is to shut your fuel off and let it run out and die on you. That way your carburetor's empty and you don't have a chance of the fuel gumming up your carb by sitting in there for too long. Another, and I recommend doing this, is to get a fuel without alcohol in it. You'll have to find, depending on where you live and what's available to you, generally premium fuel, high octane. There'll be, not all of it, you'll have to find the gas stations that sell it have no alcohol in it, and that's truly what you want to run in your small engines. That alcohol is really bad for carburetors. It really gums up and causes issues. So if at all, use alcohol-free fuel. Just ran it for a little while. I want the engine to get hot, the oil to get warm. So I'm actually just going to pull this tire off, and I can get this top of this axle. So when I drain it, I can actually get it into the container and not all over the gravel. So if you have a newer snowblower that doesn't have a manual shut off, I'd recommend using that alcohol-free fuel if you can find it, because your carburetor will be filled with gas all the time, and you're more likely to have issues because of that, with the carburetor gumming up. You can use fuel stabilizer. That helps, but I've still had issues even with using fuel stabilizer, especially if it's kept for a really long time. I still find I have issues. So alcohol-free fuel, and if you can, drain your bowl in your carb or run it out of gas. That's all I can recommend doing. This is a special pair of pliers that spread it open and pop it out, but sometimes you can just use a screwdriver and it comes off. As you see, it tilts the motor down, allows oil to drain out of there. So I'm gonna have to get a pair of pliers, vice grips. This whole camera can pick it up. Too much glare or not. This whole tube is spinning, so I need to grab onto that pipe, and then I can unscrew that. You unscrew it, allows it to come out a little faster. Whether it's kind of a pulling against the vacuum. You can see the long-sided shaft goes on the inside. That keeps the tire from rubbing against the body of the snowboard. Put it the other way, it just won't work. Washer and the clip. There we go. Just had to make sure the axle was all the way through. because it does float in and out. This. Pick it up and spin it. Kind of hard to do it yourself. There we go. Doesn't require a lot of oil. You gotta be careful not to overfill it. I'm guessing it's close to a liter, but not quite a liter, or quart. So yeah, it shows close to where we need to be, but need to run it after and make sure. That looks good. I gotta fill the tires up with air, put the snow chains on. Well, we'll see how this goes. So after you fought with it, I've got this on.